I wiped the sweat from my brow, momentarily forgetting the chaos unfolding in front of me. It was just another day at the office, a typical surgery that had turned into an ordeal. But it wasn't the patient's life on the line, it was mine. Jessica sat across from me at our favorite, a spot we'd often frequented during our early days together, back when love and laughter filled the air instead of tension and resentment. But today, the coffee tasted bitter, just like our relationship. "What's wrong with us?" I asked, feeling desperation creeping into my voice. Jessica sighed, her eyes avoiding mine. "We've grown apart, Robert. You know that." I did know it. We'd been repeating this conversation for months now, always ending in stalemates and sleepless nights. She went on, "Our goals are different. We're ready for different things." My mind began to wander back to the early days when our future seemed so bright, a small suburban home, two kids, and a white picket fence. But that was before I met her, before she changed everything about my life. She'd wanted more than just marriage. Jessica had always been driven towards success. I couldn't help but feel like a cog in the machine now, overshadowed by her ambition. We were no longer equals, not even partners, just two people stuck in a rut, fighting for control of our own lives. "We need space to figure out who we are," she said softly, almost apologetically. I could see the sadness in her eyes, the weight of responsibility that had been crushing us both. She wanted a divorce. It was the only way forward for her. It was like losing my best friend all over again, the one person I'd confided everything to, who knew me inside and out. But as much as it killed me, I couldn't deny it any longer. Our lives were diverging, and I didn't know how to hold on. The following weeks turned into months of separation, a long and grueling process that tested the limits of my soul. We'd been married for over a decade. How could we just let go? But as much as I tried to cling to what we had, Jessica was firm in her resolve. It was one of those days when reality hit me hardest, when the weight of it all became too much. I found myself staring at an empty space where our shared life once was, feeling like a stranger in my own home. But it wasn't just the house that felt foreign, it was me. I'd spent years dedicated to my career, always focused on being the best surgeon I could be. But now, the mask of professionalism slipped away during those quiet moments alone with my thoughts. What had we lost? What did we even have left? I knew there were no easy answers, but I also knew that staying in this limbo wasn't an option either. It had been 3 months since Jessica and I sat at our favorite, our conversation marking the beginning of the end of our marriage. Since then, we had both embarked on a journey to rediscover ourselves amidst the wreckage of what once was our life together. In those months, I tried my best to adapt to this new reality by throwing myself into work. The operating room became my sanctuary, a place where control and precision were not just welcomed, but expected. As the chief surgeon at a prominent hospital, I had a reputation to uphold, and I made sure that my patients received nothing but the best care. But while work provided solace, it also served as a reminder of everything else that was lacking in my life. My daughter was growing up without me there for her. My wife, who used to be my partner in every sense of the word, was now someone I hardly knew. Jessica and I had started attending couples therapy together, though I wasn't entirely sure why she agreed to it. Our sessions were tense, with both of us struggling to find common ground. We'd argue over minor issues that seemed trivial in light of our larger problems. But slowly, as we continued to meet, I began to see her perspective more clearly. It was like having a stranger for a wife, someone who had once been my best friend, but now challenged everything I held dear. She spoke of self-discovery and growth, but all I could think about were the memories we'd made together. How could it be so easy for her to walk away? One day, as we sat in our therapist's office, she asked us what we wanted from life, a question that seemed absurdly simple yet felt impossible to answer. "I don't know," I admitted, feeling defeated by my own uncertainty. Jessica looked at me with soft eyes. "I think I want freedom." to explore who I am and make my own decisions without the weight of our past holding me back. Freedom, a word that seemed to carry a different meaning for each of us. For her, it was an opportunity to grow. For me, it felt like losing everything we'd built together. "I'll support you in whatever you need," I said, trying to muster my best imitation of a genuine smile. Jessica smiled back, but the weight of her gaze told me that she knew I wasn't being entirely truthful. She reached across the table and took my hand, the first physical touch between us since our separation. "I want this too," she whispered, "to find happiness again." But for now, we were both stuck in limbo, caught between the life we'd left behind and a future that seemed shrouded in uncertainty. I woke up to an empty house, as I had grown accustomed to over the past few months. But today was different. There was a sense of stillness in the air that hadn't been present before. It wasn't just the silence that felt new. It was the realization that Jessica and I were finally starting to move forward with our lives separately. As I walked through the kitchen, memories flooded my mind like they always did. I remembered the countless mornings we'd shared breakfast together, discussing everything from work to our future plans. But now, those conversations seemed distant and hollow. In the living room, I noticed a small piece of paper on the coffee table with something scribbled in Jessica's familiar handwriting. "Meet me at the park at noon." Picking up my pace, I brushed my teeth, dressed quickly, and headed out the door. The anticipation was palpable as I walked through the quiet streets towards the park. There, surrounded by vibrant autumn colors, stood Jessica with my beautiful daughter, who'd grown more independent each day under her mother's guidance. For a moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt for missing so much of her life. Jessica smiled at me hesitantly as I approached them. "Hi," she said softly, not quite able to meet my eyes. "Hi," I replied, feeling a lump form in my throat. Despite the pain that had driven us apart, I couldn't deny how much we both still cared for each other, and for. We stood there awkwardly for a moment, unsure of what to say or do next. But then Jessica reached out and took my hand. It was a gentle touch, one that carried with it the weight of our shared past. "We need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "about our future and about." As we sat on a park bench together, I listened intently as Jessica spoke about her dreams and aspirations, goals that didn't include me this time. It was hard to accept at first, but slowly I began to understand how much she needed this newfound freedom. We talked for hours, discussing everything from custody arrangements to co-parenting strategies. The conversation wasn't easy, but it was necessary, a step towards healing and moving forward in our separate lives. As the sun began to set over the park, casting golden hues across the world around us, I realized that this wasn't the end of our story. It was just another chapter. Our separation had been painful, but we were both ready for growth. Jessica needed space, time, and freedom, things I couldn't give her anymore. And though it hurt to let go, I knew that giving her what she needed meant allowing her happiness to flourish. As the final rays of sunlight disappeared behind the trees, leaving us with only the cool twilight breeze, something shifted inside me. I finally accepted that our lives would diverge from here on out, but not without hope for the future. Jessica looked at me with gratitude in her eyes as we concluded our meeting, a silent promise between us that we'd always be there to support each other and as co-parents. As I walked back home through the twilight shadows, I knew that this was just the beginning of my own journey. It would be difficult, but I was ready to embrace change, to rediscover who Robert was outside of his marriage and find solace in new experiences, old friendships, and a closer bond with. In the end, our story wasn't about one last dramatic twist or grand reconciliation. It was about two people taking small steps towards healing, growth, and acceptance of what we truly wanted from life, even if that meant living separate lives.